1995, the year that brought us great games such as Donkey Kong Country 2, Worms, and Dark Sea 2. Wait, how'd that get in there? Get out of here. Among those games is Yoshi's Island for the Super Nintendo. What's up everyone, I'm your host, Frigid Phoenix, and welcome to Games Got Style, the series where I look at the art in video games and talk about how it affects the game's atmosphere, gameplay, and the history of it, if applicable. Today we're looking at Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. Yoshi's Island was the first major title to feature Yoshi as the main character. Games such as Yoshi's Cookie did exist, but those were pretty small side games, and Yoshi did show up in Super Mario World, but I don't think he's putting that on top of his list of favorite roles. As a quick note, all the footage in this video has been recorded from the Super Nintendo version. Although the GBA version does a good job at being faithful to the original, the limits of the Game Boy Advance lead to it being more washed out in my opinion. Series producer Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to give Yoshi his own major game. Originally he was told to go for a 3D rendered approach with the art style. This has been seen in games such as Donkey Kong Country, which allowed a very high level of detail and realism in both the animations and environments. You can still see remnants of this suggestion, mainly in the intro cinematic, which shows all the characters rendered in 3D and are reminiscent of clay. Although the final art style ended up being vastly different from this, it's likely these cinematics were left in either as a nod to the development of the game, or because they didn't want to waste the completed scenes. Once you get into the game, you're greeted with a style that's very different from games that were popular at the time. Instead of going the more realistic route, it was made even more cartoony. The art style is reminiscent of a child's storybook, and has a hand-drawn approach. The visuals look like crayon or chalk, which helps build a very childlike and fun atmosphere. The art style is colorful and expressive. There's a lot going on at most scenes, between multiple enemies to all the layers of the background and foreground. However, you never get lost because everything's separated mostly with a black line. This black line does vary in thickness, but important things such as characters or items will have sort of mid-sized lines, and the landscape that you can interact with will have very thick outlines. This acts to serve two purposes. In terms of the landscape, it helps anchor it, which acts as a visual cue on where you can go. And also, everything pops, so even when there's so much going on, you can still focus on the item you're picking up or the enemy you want to take out. This system of having thick outlines really only works when the game has a more cartooned art style. This is because the lines will serve to flatten everything. And more specifically, in this case, the black is seen as unnatural to the eyes, as this type of black is not seen in nature. Generally, blacks will have some tints of colors in them. Now, that's not to be taken that a realistic game can have this amount of stuff going on at once. The layering effect would then be accomplished through techniques such as atmospheric tinting, differences in colors, textures, and so on. The backgrounds also have different strokes and textures to differentiate them from the foreground. This adds life to the world, while also not taking focus away from where the player's eyes need to be, but at the same time, you won't be looking at a flat background. It just makes it nice to look at. Also, you think you saw the end of the third dimension? Not at all, as the third dimension does show up every now and then throughout the game. The first instance coming to mind being in the first fortress with these falling walls. Having these three-dimensional does stand out, but that's not a bad thing, because they are easy to see and easily predict where they're going to land. So why would the designers take the game in this direction with the art style? Besides the man himself deeming it so, at least. Just look at the main mechanic of the game, Baby Mario. As I said, the art style is akin to a child's storybook with bright colors, smiles on just about everything, and so on. This all gives an air of fun and innocence. This pairs with the primary goal of the game, which is to protect Baby Mario at all costs. Baby Mario is unable to do anything except be stuck in a bubble, cry, and be thrown around more than any baby should ever be. The exception to that being the rare instances you get to play as Super Baby Mario. But Mario also didn't ask to be put into this mess of a botched kidnapping. Mario is innocent, and this is reflected in the art direction. Other than that, the art direction serves a much wider purpose. It gives Yoshi a distinct identity. Remember, before this, Yoshi was a side character to Mario, or just kind of branded simple puzzle games. Yoshi didn't have a very deep identity. So in his first major title, steps were taken to give him one, to say that Yoshi was something more now. This game mechanically stood out from the Super Mario World before it. But before you even got a chance to handle the mechanics, you saw the aesthetic. You saw that this was going to be something different. This is so important when you carry a character from a pre-existing series and try to give them their own thing. You don't want people to see this new character as the same old stuff. Otherwise, what is there to get excited for? It's like when Rare brought Donkey Kong to the spotlight in Donkey Kong Country. They wanted people to know that this Donkey Kong was new, so they made it clear in the art style. Though I won't get too much into detail about that right now, as I could make an entire video on the art of Donkey Kong Country. In fact, this storybook aesthetic became so much of a part of Yoshi's identity, we saw it expanded upon in the next Yoshi game, Yoshi's Story for the Nintendo 64, which retains many elements from Yoshi's Island art style, but also takes the whole storybook aspects to an extreme, with the level select being a pop-up book, entire levels being constructed of cardboard like a diorama. We even still see a continuous evolution of that style to this day with the currently unreleased Yoshi for Nintendo Switch. The only complaints I have with the art direction in this game is that it does get too dark in some areas, such as level 1-6, but this is not a very common problem at all. I also do wonder if some people were put off by the art style, thinking that maybe it's a game just meant for little kids, therefore never attempting to play it. However, I've never actually heard anyone make that complaint before, so it probably wasn't that big of a problem. Otherwise, the color schemes help differentiate environments, the game keeps its quality consistently, everyone moves with such fluidity, and I'm just a sucker for this stuff. Despite Yoshi's Island coming off as a semi-tropical island, there is such a variety of environments, everywhere looks and feels different. And even areas that sort of borrow aesthetics from other areas tend to do something different with it. Even if it's something as minor as changing the palette to make the color selection a bit colder, it is still very effective in conveying that this is a different area and conveying the atmosphere in the level. The worlds in Yoshi's Island are so lively and energetic. This is a game where you are constantly moving and constantly reacting. The art style with its bright colors and erratic line work matches this type of energy. Any time when games are aiming for more realistic graphics than ever before, Yoshi's Island provided an alternate example to developers to show them that they don't have to go for realism even if the technology allows it. Thus, the style gave Yoshi a distinct identity and helped make this such a great and memorable game. And that's all for this episode of Games Got Style. Feel free to leave any suggestions for future games that you'd like me to cover in the comments down below. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I hope to be back with more content really soon. Take care, everyone.